Hello and welcome to the Bears and Lions podcast. This is the podcast where we challenge our present by viewing our past. I'm a firm believer that our greatest future lies within the correct view of our past, because when you actually look at it, you're going to see that, there were some things that were really tough and it was really difficult. And at the time, you probably didn't like it, but it's helped you become the person you are today. And you are so much stronger than you know. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking to you about the economy of movement and what exactly does that mean, but it's ultimately boiling down to all the different things that we do. So I can't wait to have this conversation with you. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you hit that like and subscribe button. I really appreciate it. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or iTunes, thank you so much. Make sure that you hit that follow button and share the podcast with somebody. If you want to find me on my socials, you can find me on X, which is formerly known as Twitter, also on TikTok, same handle at Kyle Vaught. If you want to find me on Instagram or Threads, it's Kyle_Vaught. Thank you guys so much. I hope you enjoy the conversation, and I'll see you on the other side. So, what is the economy of movement? That's the question that I want to talk to you about today. And it's often referred in fighting sports as a economy of motion. Now, in like soccer and running, it's known as running economy or movement economy, or sometimes aerobic economy. And it's the energy that's required to complete normal sports movements, right? So the amount of energy that a athlete will exert to run or jump or whatever they may be doing, skating if they're, maybe hockey players, right? So whatever the normal sports movement is, that is what they can measure, right? How much energy is exerted, what they need. Are they exerting too much energy on certain motions? So basketball players, if they're, crossing someone over, what's the energy that they need to exert? And I've really been interested in this topic for a while because I look at my life and I used to play athletics or, different sports all the time. I feel like I'm pretty athletic, or at least I was really athletic at one point in time. And it's finding, how do I get from point A to point B as quick as I can, right? If you're playing basketball, how do I get from a defense to offense as fast as I can? How do I get from one point to the other? If you're in a race, of course, it's going to be, how can I get from start to the finish line as quickly as possible? How can I get from end zone to end zone? And so in every sport, there's that athletic thought of how can we be as efficient as possible? And I really like this concept. And as I dug deeper and deeper into it, I actually learned about Jeet Kune Do, which is a martial arts that Bruce Lee kind of hallmarked or pinpointed. And it really, what Jeet Kune Do did was it emphasized that every movement must have a purpose. It amplified the efficiency and power. He could attack with minimum distance, but maximum force. And it made me think, how often do we spend the most amount of times on things that take the least amount of effort? And I realized that when we change our mentality to an economy of motion or movement, we minimize time spent on things that don't matter and maximize the time on things that do. Now, what does that look like in our lives, right? So maybe you're the type of person who, after you get off work, there's some other things that you could get done. Maybe you want to do laundry or meal prep, or you should go to the gym, but instead you Netflix and chill. Or instead you, hop on video games or do something. You go for a walk and you talk to friends, or you go out to eat, whatever it might be. Now that's not a bad thing, right? In and of itself, video games aren't bad. And in my mindset, I don't think that video games are bad. I don't think going to the movies are bad. I don't think going out for a walk, that's probably the best option there. But I don't think going out to eat with friends is bad either. But if there's something pressing that's more important, right? If there are things that you want to do, right? You say, oh, I really wanted to go to the gym today, but then, they're going out to eat, so I'm just going to go out to eat with them. If that happens once, okay. If it happens twice, even then, I'm probably going to give you the benefit of the doubt. But if it's happening every week, you're saying, I want to go to the gym, but I choose this instead. Or maybe it's, I want to write a book, and so I need to create time in my life to really write and force myself to write. And every time you just procrastinate or you say, I'll do it tomorrow. If you begin saying things like, I'm going to do it tomorrow, or I have time tomorrow, or I have time later this week, and I'll get to it then. I think that's the key phrase, right? I'll get to it then. At that point, you know that your economy of movement, you are putting effort into minimal things or things that have minimum impact on the things that you actually want. And so having an economy of motion or an economy of movement, it's saying, okay, every move I make, I'm going to make it count. And I'm going to make sure that this is going to progress me. So maybe you do want to learn a new art, or you want to learn how to cook, or you want to learn how to dance, right? You make those movements where it's like, okay, I'm going to go work out so I can be more in shape, so I can do the movements in practice, or I'm going to spend some extra time practicing so that I can be better at this. I'm going to offer to cook and take time out of my day to cook for other people so I get better options and more people who can try my food and tell me if it's good or not. Right? Whatever that is in your life, it's about making every move count. And that's something over the last few months I've really been doing. And so this thought has kind of been in my mind for a while. And I've done a little bit of research on it to figure out how I wanted to kind of show you the economy of movement. And one of the biggest things and proponents that I've seen in my life is waking up early in the morning. That's been something that I've been very adamant about. And now, for the past few weeks when I moved, it was a little bit harder because I was in transition period and figuring out, but we're getting back in the swing of things. And one of the things that I noticed was when I stopped waking up as early as I was, there was a whole shift in my movement forward towards what I wanted to do, both with the podcast, in my work, and just in my personal life. There was this shift where I wasn't creating the time for what matters to me, which is being mentally healthy and stable and being hungry to grow and learn, and giving time for me in the morning to do some reading with a fresh mindset. And so I started waking up early again. And one of the first things I noticed on day 2 of waking up early this week, I noticed immediately that all of the things that I had been stressed about the previous weeks, I had created time to practice and I didn't have stress. So whether it was work things that I was like, oh, I don't know if I have time to do this, etc., I was getting my workouts in. And because I was getting my workouts in, I was much sharper right in that first few hours of work. I was very sharp. So I was retaining more knowledge. And then all of a sudden, because I was retaining more knowledge, I felt way more confident in talking about it. And in some of my run-throughs that I've been going through in my training, all of a sudden I realized you don't have to stress. You don't have to stress at all. So by day 2, I really started seeing an impact of where my choices and the economy of my movements, the choices that I was making, were impacting every other area, to where I was sleeping better, to the point last night I got in bed before 9 p.m. and I felt accomplished. I didn't get in bed because I was just overly exhausted or that I was done with the day. I got in bed because I completed everything and I was excited about laying down and resting without any thoughts of, oh, I have this, and this to do. And just a thought, and just something that I really was impacted by and encouraged by, to be honest. And that's something where I'm striving for success. I think all of us are striving for success in something that we're doing. It's not just me. If you're listening to this podcast, then I guarantee you're also pursuing great things in your life. And they may be small, they may be massive, they may be 10 times larger, 100 times larger than you could ever imagine, but you're pursuing that. And my job, of course, is to encourage you and keep you accountable and maybe challenge you in different thoughts where maybe you're falling off the horse or maybe things are changing. And it's my goal to encourage you and say, look, I've done it. I'm doing it. I'm currently fighting the good fight for you and with you. And I want to make sure that we think about these things and what our movement looks like, what our choices throughout our day. Do we have a good economy of movement going throughout? Because ultimately, success is not a straight line. We know that, right? A line, right? A straight line is known as the shortest distance between 2 points, right? We learned that in what? Geometry, I think. And I think that's it. I'm not great at math, but it's the shortest distance between 2 points, right? Is a line. It's a straight line. Success doesn't always work like that. You and I both know life doesn't always work like that, right? We say, I need to get from point A to point B, right? This is where I am. This is what I want. So I'm going to go for it. And then we start going for it and we're like, it's a straight line. It's going to be easy. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm turning left. And then, oh, I'm turning right. And then we're looking at something. How did I get here, right? You get so far off the path sometimes, not even realizing it because relationships and people and all these things happen. And we're like, wait, what did I actually want? Right? You almost lose sight of that end goal sometimes. It's happened to me, and I know it's happened to other friends because I've had conversations about this. Success is often like an up and down path or a left and right path. But if we make our choices and shape our actions behind our purpose or behind our dreams even, I know that we can straighten that line to success. And it will ultimately help us stay aligned with our dreams and passions, right? It's I'm starting to get off, but no, I'm going to make sure I wake up early and I'm going to make sure that I do this. Even though I don't want to, even though I don't like to, I kind of like this area that I'm going to the right a little bit. This seems fun. These people seem cool, but they're not where I want to be, but it would be really fun to hang out with them a little bit longer. It's about maybe course correcting a little sooner. Rather than going way off the rails, you're able to course correct and straighten that line sooner and sooner and sooner. And I think that there's value in that in every day because it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. This is not a podcast where I'm ever going to say, yeah, it's easy to do this. No, it's always going to be harder than you think, but it's always going to be more worth it than you think, right? You make the choices and it's the economy, right? It's the cost. We live in an economic crazy time where just a couple years ago, we saw the effects. We can remember the effects of a few years ago in housing and rent and cars and gas and things like that. And then now we look at it, we're like, whoa, the economy has completely changed. Now we have to make sure that we have a mentality in the economy of our choices so that we don't make any mental errors for a mental inflation where we start saying, yeah, we can do the exact same thing with the same amount of money, but it's a different time in our life with a different change. Or we can do the exact same thing with the same amount of effort. Well, we might not be in that level, right? The same effort of the 13-year-old and myself that mowed lawns, the effort is great, but my job right now is very different with a lot of different skills than just pushing a lawnmower. As much as that was difficult physically, mentally, I couldn't handle the job that I have now, right? There's a different effort that's there, and I think it's important. And lastly, I talked about it a little bit, but making it count, right? I remember going to Six Flags over Texas growing up. We lived right outside of Arlington, Texas, and we would go to Six Flags over Texas a lot. And they had the basketball game, right, where the hoop is always like a little bit off. But if you shot the hoop and you made the basket, you got a prize. And it's at carnivals and other places, I'm sure, not just Six Flags. But do you guys know what I'm talking about? I'm pretty sure that most of you can probably reference it or know what I'm talking about in that basketball game. So if I was to ask you, if you knew that I was going to give you 10 tries to make a 3-point shot, for every shot, you would get $10. My question to you is, would you practice before? Would it be of value for you to take some shots? Now, what if I raised it to $500 or even $1,000 per shot made? Would you practice then? I feel like you would practice, right? You would probably make some time to get that opportunity to make $500 or $1,000 per shot made, right? And I think you have to see your future as the jackpot worth putting time into. Most people treat their future like a carnival game, right? They just, I'll step up and shoot. And then they wonder why they missed and they didn't get the prize. There's such a value in being able to recognize the cost it takes to be great, and then to follow through with every economic movement and every thought and every choice saying, I'm going to do everything I can control. So you want to lose weight, eat healthy, diet, exercise, get good sleep, drink water, etc. Right? We know the formula. If you want to get better at writing, make sure that you're writing, make sure people are reading your writing, make sure you're taking good criticism, making sure that you're writing and rewriting and rewriting. It's practice. It all comes down to practice. Make sure that the choices you're making today are putting you in the best opportunity tomorrow, right? The best opportunity, because you may get the opportunity of a lifetime tomorrow. And I don't want any of us to miss our shot. That's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you hit that like and subscribe button. You can always comment as well. I really am encouraged by the comments. If you're listening on Spotify or iTunes, thank you. Make sure that you follow and share this podcast with a friend or two. If you want to find me on my socials, you can find me on TikTok or X, which is formerly known as Twitter, at Kyle Vaught. That's Kyle, V as in Victor, A, T as in Tom, T as in Tom. And that's my handle across those. And then on Instagram, it's Kyle _. So Instagram and Threads, it's Kyle _Vaught, V as in Victor, ATT. I'd love to connect and I'd love to see you guys there. I post there often. I try to do it daily. We're getting back into the swing of things. There's a lot happening. This is going to be a great month. Happy February. For everybody else, I hope you have a wonderful week. Remember to give grace, show love, and as always, stay stellar. Peace.